This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Well, there's a lot happening right now, Real Talkers, and we're glad to have you with us. In just a second, we'll check back in with Vicky Mochama. She's host of a new Canadian political podcast, Party All the Time. It's out every Fridays. Episode 1 just dropped this past Friday. Another one coming this week. And every Tuesday through the federal election campaign, she joins us from Ontario, John, for a cross-Canada conversation about the biggest stories making news. A headline breaking just hours before we're putting this show together. The Liberal candidate in Markham-Unionville. This story popped up. It popped up during our Real Talk group chat roundtable in our most recent episode, our March 31st episode. Paul Chiang, the Liberal candidate in Markham-Unionville, suggesting that snitches, basically, that snitches should call in and report his competitor, Joe Tay, the Conservative candidate in that riding, to the Chinese consulate for a reward of the equivalent of about 185,000 Canadian dollars. Here's the thing, though. There had been a bounty placed on his head for his work in independent media. Now the RCMP are investigating. This has been a bit of a mess, and actually maybe a huge mess. I'm curious what Vicky's going to say about this, but a lot of folks are saying this was Mark Carney's first real test when it comes to leadership. And did he fail the test? Said he was standing by the candidate until the candidate himself resigned. So what happened there? We'll get into that and more in this episode of Real Talk, which is happening with the support of Business Career College. You know, they've been in the business of online financial training since the mid-1990s. They've been doing this forever, and that's why I think so many finance professionals, including senior financial advisors, are looking at businesscareercollege.com for more on this Certified Digital Asset Advisor designation. The CDAA course covers everything from the foundations of cryptocurrency, how Bitcoin and blockchain actually work, to next-gen cryptocurrencies and strategies for advising clients. This doesn't have anything to do with whether or not you're bullish on Bitcoin or whether or not this is your area of personal interest when it comes to your own finances, but polling tells us that 3/4 of the next generation of investors, of millennials, of Gen Z, are interested in decentralized finance as part of their portfolio, which means you got to know what you're talking about when you're advising them, right? This is you future-proofing your career and better serving your clients. You can learn more about the Certified Digital Asset Advisor designation at businesscareercollege.com. You can just Google Business Career College CDAA. It'll take you right to the page. And when you invest in this for your career, make sure you use the promo code Ryan20. That's all one word, Ryan20 knocks 20% off the cost of that course, about $100 or so, right back into your pocket when you use the code Ryan20 at businesscareercollege.com. Also got some breaking news here in Alberta when it comes to the candidacy of another pretty big name running for the Liberals. We have a hot take in our email inbox right now, and we'll wait to see that. I'm hitting refresh on all my social media, John, right now, because we don't make announcements before announcements have been made, but I think this will probably get some folks interested in Calgary, as a relatively high-profile candidate will be running for Mark Carney down in Calgary. More on that if the news is out before the time that we've wrapped this episode. You'll hear about it on this episode of Real Talk, and if not, we'll see if we can get the candidate in and, of course, the person that they'll be running against. That's how we want to roll in some high-profile ridings here. Give you, Real Talkers, a chance to hear from the candidates, to better understand the platforms, and, of course, to make informed decisions. I know that that's a big part of what's driving Vicky Mochama and her guests every single week. She's got a brand new show out, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Party All the Time, a new Canadian political podcast releasing new episodes every single Friday. It's nice to see your face back on Real Talk. How does it feel to get episode 1 out there? You've got to be stoked about it. This has been a long time coming.
Oh, I'm so delighted. Like, it was what I want set out to do this show and create some political content for Canadians that's, not dreary to say the least, even though these are kind of dreary times. And I'm so happy that it's out there.
So, we'll get into that, and I want to talk to you about, you had a wonderful guest lineup, and you tackle some of the top stories as you recap week one of the election campaign. But as elections go, week two, we're already in an entirely different direction, talking about big stories, including this one. Liberal candidate out of Markham-Unionville, Paul Chiang, resigns over his Chinese bounty comments. I guess the buzz yesterday was, how on earth is Mark Carney not disqualifying this guy as a candidate? Carney called his comments deeply offensive, but said he was sticking by him. And then obviously something changed just hours ago. Mr. Chiang resigning as the candidate. What do you make of the story, in particular, the insights we got into how Mark Carney plans on running the party?
I don't know if we got a lot of insight into how he's running the party. I think this is a fairly typical story we see during elections. Candidate says something awful, and then how does the party handle it? And a lot of that is based on the calculus of whether they're likely to win in that riding, whether or not, in riding, the candidate can weather the storm. And usually the answer is no. But in this riding, it seemed like the party was a bit of a distance from the candidate himself, who decided to resign. And so we see maybe an inkling of how Mark Carney governs, but we don't really know a lot about his decision style. In fact, we don't really know a lot about his operational style, considering he's had these big leadership portfolios. There's not a lot of talk about how he managed certain projects. There's just that, the fact that he was there managing those projects, not a lot about his particular individual style.
So this is the story kind of is interesting, and there's a lot of layers to it. Paul Chiang, obviously the incumbent there, so he's been the MP for this riding for about 3.5 years now. So that's a story in itself. The incumbent withdrawing from the race. Joe Tay, who's now the Conservative candidate for Don Valley North and who is the target of these comments, reportedly had spoken with Mr. Chiang late Sunday night. So whatever, let's call it 36 hours ago, but said that he had actually rejected the apology and insisted that the candidate should be removed. I mean, what's he going to say? Obviously, strategically, he's a conservative. Chiang's a liberal. He wants him out of there no matter what. But he said his threatening comments intended to intimidate me, and they should not be tolerated. For background, for those that aren't familiar with the stories, back in December, Hong Kong police announced a bounty of the Canadian equivalent of about $184,000 for information leading to Mr. Tay's arrest for allegedly violating a national security law imposed by China. Tay runs a YouTube channel called Hong Konger Station that draws attention to continuing civil rights violations in Hong Kong. A month later, Paul Chiang reportedly telling a Chinese language media conference that people should take Mr. Tay to the People's Republic of China consulate in Toronto and collect the reward, saying, quote, if anyone here can take him to the Chinese consulate general in Toronto, you can get that $1 million reward. Now, the RCMP have confirmed that it is investigating whether or not the comments were a violation of the Foreign Interference and Security of Information Act that was passed by Parliament last year. Are Canadians paying enough attention to this? I mean, an RCMP investigation? That'll raise a few eyebrows.
I think this raises a question that goes back to a story from last week and that we talked about on the podcast about foreign interference in our elections. What does it look like when there's a politics that's emerging from overseas that is impacting our democracy? And what do we do about that? So there is the Foreign Interference and Security of Information Act. That's a response to what we've seen as the rising tide of interference from bad actors from overseas. On the podcast, Harrison Lohman points out that, the Liberals have a problem when it comes to maybe China, but the Conservatives might also have a problem when it comes to India. And there's an overall problem of foreign interference, or the way diaspora politics maybe is leveraged against other people in our Canadian democracy. And that's something we kind of have to figure out. This might seem like a very Ontario problem specific to the diversity of that region, of Markham-Unionville to Don Valley North. But I think when we look at where people are settling in Canada, it's everywhere now, partially because of affordability issues, but it's everywhere. And so we have to think about how our communities are being harmed sometimes.
Does this take what's the best way for this to happen? Right now, the party leaders, the parties themselves are in the foxholes. Like, this is it. They've got April 28th circled on the calendar. They're pedal to the metal. Is it unrealistic? Is it ridiculous to suggest that there's some sort of a bipartisan effort? There's some sort of a collective effort to inform Canadians about this type of thing, to try to instill confidence, to take more seriously the threats of foreign interference, or is this absolute lunacy from a campaign strategy standpoint? The stories pop up and disappear. Things happen fast in a campaign. People won't even be talking about this 4 days from now, for being real.
Yeah, I think it's going to slip us by, but I think it's, part of the steady drip of bad information when it comes to this particular issue. There's small things. I can't tell campaign strategists or political strategists what to do, not being one at all. But as a journalist, a small thing is like making sure this particular article is translated into Chinese language articles so that it gets out to everybody in the community, so everyone knows this, same shared set of facts that is being reported by places like the Globe and Mail and by great reporters like Stephen Chase. So there's small things our side of the world, our media side of the world can do that will contribute to everyone putting together a strong defense of what is a challenging democracy.
I'm curious to know, from your standpoint, I sure appreciate that we can go across the country every Tuesday morning through the campaign, Alberta and Ontario, connecting to achieve something. How about that? We're showing politicians, Vicky, that it is possible. But there's two high-profile stories involving candidates either withdrawing from the race or being removed. The other, a Conservative candidate out of Southwest Ontario, former member of the media, as a matter of fact, Mark candidate. The party has said that his comments unacceptable. He was the candidate for Windsor, Tecumseh Lakeshore. These comments made regarding the former Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, where Mr. McKenzie expresses support for, basically public hangings, and suggests that Mr. Trudeau should meet that fate, jokingly suggesting when he was recording on a podcast a couple of years ago, back in 2022, in fact, that Justin Trudeau should receive the death penalty. You got kind of a smirk on your face. Do you know this guy personally? What's the deal? What are people saying about it?
I don't know this man, but this is like my nightmare, and precisely the situation I'm trying to engineer with this podcast. I want folks to come on and say something wild. That would be very fun for me. I think this is what happens again at this point in the election. Things are surfaced, things are brought back. It's a little bit of the investigative work that local news does. They try to find out who these people are that are running for office. And this seems like a huge success for local journalism in terms of making sure that someone who is speaking isn't going to misspeak on their constituents' behalf. But it is my nightmare. I say a lot of stuff on the podcast, so
have you ever
I could never run for office.
Have you ever called for a real life human, an actual person, in particular a public figure or the leader of a G7 nation, to be publicly hanged?
That's a great question. No, I don't think I have. But if someone were to come up with the audio, I would be like, hard to deny.
It would be good for clicks and downloads, and probably bad for your personal and professional future.
It'd be the end of me, I'm certain.
Both can be true at the same time. There has kind of been that, and I'm certainly not justifying the comment, obviously. And I think that the average citizen probably underestimates the heat and the scrutiny that they can, I guess the word is surveillance, that they can bring upon themselves by making comments like these. And we have seen in sporadic occasions, either investigations or charges laid for people who threaten public figures, including the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau. There were several instances through his tenure as PM. But in a way, comments like that kind of got normalized. Like, you see politicians hung in effigy. You see some of the signs that we saw during the Ottawa occupation. And I'm not saying it is normal to call for people to be hanged or killed or receive the death penalty. But it wasn't unusual at certain points over the past 5 years. You know what I mean?
I mean, there's something to be said and a postmortem to be done about a certain level of like Trudeau derangement syndrome. Just something about him got people in a very visceral way to be very, very upset and to go beyond the boundaries of polite discussion. on the podcast, my friend Lauren Mitchell, who's a comedian, points out like there was something kind of psychosexual with the fuck Trudeau crowd. It was like, what was that about? Why was that so salient for so many people? And I don't think we'll fully analyze it, but there is a kind of small core of darkness that I think we still need to grapple with. That it's like it was allowable to say these kinds of things and go to that extent with this individual.
Yeah, because but part of me is like, you wonder sometimes how some of these things get through the vetting. I don't know. I mean, I have no insight into how candidate vetting actually works. You wonder who works harder on it. The party for whom the individual is the candidate or the party that is opposing that individual. I would imagine opposition research is just as diligent. But some of this stuff comes up and you go, how on earth would they miss that? How wouldn't they know? But you realize, I mean, if he's a media personality, he's been saying wild things on podcasts. I've never heard of the guy before personally until the story popped up. But you kind of go, gosh, that's something you think might be missed. But I understand why he might have thought he'd be a fantastic conservative candidate. The guy's been talking shit about Trudeau for 10 years, wanted about, and now he wanted to do something about it, wanted to participate in democracy. Just goes to show what flies on placards and road signs doesn't fly under the scrutiny of the Canadian public during an election.
No, absolutely not. I think this is one of those things where it's like opposition research or just candidate vetting might not catch something like this because they're looking for kind of like the big obvious issues. Are they pro or against the party? Are they are they prone to just generally saying wild things? Are they interested in working as part of a backbench or a caucus? But they might not get into the weeds or might not have time to get into the weeds, especially in ridings where it doesn't seem like they're likely to win. Maybe they just run somebody who has a chance at chipping away at the front runner. There's all sorts of political calculuses that go into this. And it just seems like this one was either a missed opportunity or this is just a genuine win for local journalism.
I don't know if we need to compare these, but it's kind of an interesting one that is this Progressive Windsor is in our chat, watching live on YouTube. Welcome to the show, Progressive Windsor. It says the Mark McKenzie story, the conservative story, basically hang Justin Trudeau, is 100 times worse than Paul Chiang. And says Pierre Poilievre not speaking to it is yet even worse. I'm not sure it's 100 times worse than the Chiang story. What do you make? I mean, is this a fruitful exercise for us to stack up the two, or can we all agree that neither are good for either party nor leader?
Yeah, I think we could just put them in one big basket of bad.
Yeah. Did you see Jody Wilson-Raybould's tweet about this is kind of interesting, throwing a bit of shade at Carney? Everybody knows how the relationship professionally wound up between JWR and the former Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. But she retweets a piece by Globe Politics, Mark Carney, this as of the 31st of March. So this is before Paul Chiang stepped down. Carney, standing by candidate who made, quote, deeply offensive comments, says Jody Wilson-Raybould, former federal justice minister. Eek! The new guy is starting to look much like the old guy. And then she hashtags simple decision. It should have been a simple decision. Are you surprised to see JWR chiming in on this?
No, not at all. She's been chirping away for the last couple, basically since she left. And she's, having the insight she has every right to comment. Not surprised at all to see her in the mix of this one.
Yeah. Were you surprised that there was no time? You and I didn't really get into any of this. You and I weren't doing regular segments when the Liberal leadership race was happening, but there were some. I know there were some people, maybe particularly in Western Canada, I don't know, but some people were feeling like there may be an opening for her to return, for her to pursue a new and bright future within the Liberal Party. Was there any chatter about that with JWR out in Ontario?
Absolutely not. Oh my God.
No?
This is like, I think yesterday's show, somebody was like, what if Aaron O'Toole came back? This is how I now feel like everybody else. Like, what are you saying right now?
Did you hear that?
I've never heard any of that chatter. I think it'd be unlikely. And especially now when she, seeing Chrystia Freeland's numbers and Chrystia Freeland's still inside the party, inside the tent, and she only got 8%. I don't think JWR has a chance, but anything's possible. Would I ever thought we would have been talking about Prime Minister Mark Carney anything's possible in politics.
Yeah, I think folks have their favorites, and people have a vision of what their party could look like under which leader. And yeah, we got I don't know, I would say like more than 10 emails about it, which typically represents a decent number of people. Anyway, moving on. She's not a candidate. She's not the leader. She's not part of the party. Angus Reid releasing some new favorability numbers, net favorables. And I wanted to ask you about this polling. About 2,100 Canadians polled. This was released just hours ago. It shows Carney's net favorables plus 22, Poilievre a minus 20, and Singh a minus 21. It kind of fits some of the narrative we've seen around this election, but what do you read into those numbers?
I think there's two things I see. One is that Mark Carney, regardless of whether they intend to vote for him, there seems to be just sort of a general appreciation for him. And part of that is the kind of like adult in the room vibe, Mr. Economist Banker Dad here to sort of solve solutions, bring up solutions, and come up with answers to basically the Trump question. But then I also see a concerning drop for Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, which is to say, over the last year and a half, they've actually had an open goal to make him favorable to the public, and that doesn't seem to be sticking. That's not the same as whether or not people will vote for him, but whether or not people enjoy him or find him somebody they could vote for. That's concerning that message really hasn't landed. They've pivoted a few times, changing his tone, changing his demeanor, taking off his glasses, but it doesn't seem to have had the impact that they're looking for.
When he dropped the pizza the other day, you saw it? Everybody was talking about the video. I actually thought it was great for him. He laughed. He dropped the pizza, which could happen to anybody. That would happen to me if I was doing it. He's using one of those big pizza tools, like pulling it out of the oven, and it slides off. Probably had some semolina flour on there. It can get slippery. It slides off, and he grabs it with his hands, and he's trying to put it back on, and then he started laughing, and it was like this expression that you really don't see from him. Like you kind of see like a smirk. I'm talking publicly. I'm not talking about behind the scenes with his friends or whatever. But he's a little like Connor McDavid that way, stone-faced in public and then silly behind the scenes. But I thought seeing Pierre Poilievre laugh when he dropped the pizza, I actually thought it was a positive for him, and I haven't seen a lot of people spinning it that way.
I think there's something about the image that he has that doesn't seem to be sticking or doesn't seem to be working or doesn't seem to have any kind of natural momentum of its own. Now, I would love it if the Conservative Party got him to do hijinks. There was that moment a couple months ago where he was, chewing the apple and just being a little bit of more playful, I guess, as it might have looked like. And something about that really resonated with people. It was just like a refreshing change of tone coming from him specifically. And I think they could stand to shake it up. But, he's been in politics for such a long time. I think it'd be difficult for him to shed some of his habits, some of his ways of functioning. And so I think it's a challenge. And we see it, the conservative girlies, they are gossiping. They have talked to every publication about the need to turn around the ship and the fact that his numbers are not increasing, that he's not getting any more appeal from the public. And they're talking about it. Everyone's talked to Corey tonight. Almost every conservative strategist who's not working on the campaign seems to have spoken to a Globe and Mail reporter. It is that negative 20 is really concerning, considering they've had so much time and they have the biggest war chest.
Do you think the Corey Tonight comment, for background, former very high profile Harper guy, and he's worked on a ton of campaigns. He's easily one of the more prominent operatives in Canada, I would say, for sure, and basically roasted the Conservative campaign to this point. I guess you probably I certainly don't think he's cheering for them to lose. I guess maybe he's trying to light a fire under them. I guess maybe there's something more going on below the surface. Maybe it's something aimed at Jenny Byrne. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it's not. I don't know. But what did you read into the comments? They were striking, and they obviously grabbed everybody's attention. They made national news.
Yeah, I think just the change in the polling. On the podcast, Katie O'Malley from iPolitics, she says, we haven't really talked about how the data was telling us for about a year and a half to 2 years that the Conservatives were going to not just win, they were going to have a landslide. Mm-hmm. They were going to have something near 225 seats in the House, which would have been substantial. And now they're facing off a minority government if they're lucky. That's kind of what the data is telling us. Now, the data can be flawed across many different polls, and you should always believe that the last poll is on election day. However, the data so far is telling us that there's something not. I think basically Corey Tenike was saying what a lot of conservatives are thinking, and he has the stature to say it.
Jay Draw is watching us live on YouTube today in our live chat, powered by Park Power, says the conservatives on the two-candidate front were quick to deal with it, quick with dealing with a problem individual, unlike the Liberals who tried to keep a problem individual. That from Jay Draw. Let us know what you think if you're listening or watching live in that live chat. And, of course, you can always leave a comment on our YouTube episodes or send us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com. We're hanging out with Vicky Mochama. She's the host of the brand new Canadian political podcast, Party All the Time. You can find the video episodes on the Real Talk YouTube channel. You can download her podcast. Make sure you subscribe to it anywhere you get your podcasts, including iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Episode 1, you bring in the big guns. Loved your chat with Katie O'Malley, Harrison Lohman, and Lauren Mitchell. I want to throw to a quick clip of it now. They're assessing. We're going to start by hearing from Katie about the different approaches to the campaigns, the Liberals, the NDP, and the Conservatives, and the role that tariffs, Vicky, we're talking to you on the eve of what we're expecting to be another wave of Trump tariffs on April 2nd, the impact that American politics and this international relationship has had on these three campaigns. Here it is from Party All the Time.
Particularly the New Democrat and the Liberal campaigns, they have very much been touching on the issues going on with the U.S., specifically the need to support workers. Both of them have been putting that really front and center, and it does allow them to take breaking news and sort of incorporate that into the way they're presenting stuff. The Conservatives have taken a bit of a different strategy and have kind of been going on a separate narrative. They are tying stuff back to this notion of a strong Canada and a strong economy, but immediately segue to things like, and then we'll, eliminate the rest of the carbon tax, and then we'll do all these things that they were going to do and were in their platform anyway. So far, they don't seem to be making it quite as much a sort of core component of their campaign. That could change, but both the New Democrats and the Liberals have really been keeping it very central for at least the opening week of the campaign.
So there she is. That's Katie O'Malley. Is it too late for Pierre Poilievre to pivot? I don't think it's too late. I think there's still a lot of runway. I just don't know how you roll it out in a believable way, right? He's got this issue right now where, as a conservative, he's got to stand for conservative values, conservative principles. A lot of those, most particularly economic, would probably, by definition, to use Danielle Smith's phrase, align with the new direction of America. But at the same time, that's not what Canadians are looking for right now.
The test is tomorrow. We'll see what happens with Trump's tariffs, and then we'll see what the response is. As Katie points out, there's sort of the caretaker convention, which allows the government to govern, but they can't take drastic measures until the end of the election. But what we'll see is there are different responses on the campaign trail and how they respond to both the government measures as well as to what the Trump administration is doing. And so there's broad alignment about, ensuring certain types of support for workers, ensuring that there's funds for the industry to allow them to kind of take the body blow. But it's about whether or not they respond in a way that Canadians feel confident in. And that's what we're seeing is whether or not the Trump tariffs are one of the bigger issues. I think the other one is still ongoing, which is the affordability crisis, and that's national. Those numbers have been fairly consistent, that affordability or housing or the cost of food are on people's kind of top of mind. And so we're going to get into that at the end of this week. For this week's podcast, I've got some great guests who are going to talk us through affordability in Canada. And so how the parties respond and how they make sure that they're addressing these particular concerns of Canadians, that's going to be the test this week.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because affordability has been the story for at least the last year, when people were talking about, Canadians would be polled on, what's your top political priority? What are you looking for your politicians? What's your number one issue right now? Always interesting to see the environment just falling, and affordability rising, and different contexts, of course. For some folks, it was the housing crisis. Depending, I bet a lot of people in your neck of the woods, in Toronto, and or Canadians in Vancouver, or something like that, the housing crisis is for a lot of folks probably all they can think of. And then this stuff starts happening with the United States, and while it still is a conversation about individuals' bottom lines, it's also a bigger conversation about like the relationship between these two nations and the future of the economy and what that means generally for like unemployment. Do you feel like the focus has been taken off individuals' ability to pay their own bills and more about a bigger conversation about, you know, the theory and the practice of these relationships and free trade? And it's not so much more about like Jack and Jill and talking about whether or not they're choosing between milk or their hydro bill this month.
You know, I think that is a mistake on the part of our industry as people who work in the media to make sure that people understand like free trade is possibly the reason why you were able to afford a car last year and why this year you will not be able to afford a car. These are connections that it's up to journalists to really kind of make it and empower people with that. Every single thing. I'm you know, raised by old school feminists. The personal is the political every single day. And so whether it's your basement flooding because you live on a floodplain that now gets greater volumes of water due to the change in the climate, and now it's costing you because you have to redo your entire basement, or making sure that there's a connection between, like free trade, the cost of bread and eggs and cars, all has to do with our relationship with the United States and how that's going to change or how that's going to be reframed. That's the work I have to do as a journalist, to try to make sure we connect those dots. And I think people feel it. People definitely know that that's what's happening. It's just a matter of making sure that there's people like us explaining it to them.
I think that's such a great point that you make, and I'll look forward. So this episode you've got coming up, episode 2 on affordability, people will be able to catch that on Friday on YouTube, wherever they get your podcasts. I want to say I pulled a quick clip from, I really enjoyed Harrison Lohman on your pod. He's over at The Hub. They're doing amazing work as well in independent journalism. His characterization of Mark Carney, the nautical reference, I thought this audience had to hear it in case they haven't heard your episode 1 yet. So here's Harrison Lohman on Party All the Time.
The more that Carney gets to appear in front of a podium looking prime ministerial, the more like the party operatives behind him are sort of licking their lips, right? We heard recently
disgusting
that
visual image.
It's just like saliva dripping. But we heard that conversation with Danielle Smith and Breitbart like a few weeks ago. It came out recently, but it was taped a few weeks ago, where she was saying things like, I'm telling U.S. officials to press pause on the tariffs. I don't know, if a Liberal Party official had meetings with Trump, I feel like they'd be saying, we want play to be pressed. Because every time Carney looks prime ministerial and can react to Trump's tariffs, I think it really helps the Liberals, right? The Conservatives are saying this is just a fresh touch of red paint on a rusty hull of an old Liberal ship that's got all the same, I don't know, what do we call them? First mates helping to run the ship. I don't really know how ships work.
That always happens with nautical metaphors. I start strong and then I just fall apart.
The turbulent churning waters of the Canadian electorate.
So there you go. I think you did all right there. The fresh coat of paint on the rusty hull of the old Liberal ship, which actually basically sounds like a Paul Martin reference, considering his family's history in the shipping business. But I digress. So there you have it. Did you feel like it was a fair? It was an amusing characterization of the Liberal Party, but of course Harrison's laying out exactly what the Conservatives are trying to convince everybody else about. This is nothing more than a fresh coat of paint. You think they can do it?
I mean, even that language is kind of more evocative than anything we've heard. So I was like, Harrison, you should go work for the party. You've got a way with words. I love Harrison Lohman. They were doing a daily show for the hub.ca throughout the election. It's wonderful. Lots of great chatter. And I think it was a fair characterization of how the Conservatives would like people to think.
You can check out, just to plug the Hub for a second, we always want to support independent journalism wherever we can. Michael Keppa's got a piece for him out this morning. Not expelling Chiang sooner was Mark Carney's first big mistake. We've been hanging out with Vicky Mochama. She is the host of Party All the Time. We want you to go right now, Real Talkers, and we want you to subscribe to that podcast wherever you get it. Make sure you rate it, review it, give it a listen. You can find it on YouTube as well. A new one coming out on Friday. Let us know what you think. It's always good to see you. We'll talk to you next Tuesday, my friend.
Talk to you soon.
All right, Vicky, thanks very much. That's Vicky Mochama. How about this? We've got a Calgary mayoral candidate, Jeremy Farkas, in our live chat. Powered by Park Power, he says the Trump situation is responsible for at least a third of the emails into our municipal campaign inbox. That from who you might call one of the favorites to be Calgary's next mayor. We'll wait to see what happens there. That's obviously an election this fall, but how about that? One of the favorites letting us know a third, 1 out of 3 of the emails into their municipal campaign inbox. Folks that you might suspect are writing in about so-called municipal issues are concerned about what's happening in the White House. So that gives you a real sense of kind of how this is playing out. Let us know what you think about the interview with Vicky, of what you just heard, of that situation, in particular in Markham-Unionville, Mark Carney's decision to stand by the candidate. Now it looks like something else happened, right? Carney says we're sticking with him even though the comments were deeply offensive. Maybe because he was an incumbent. I don't know. And then now he's gone. And then does that undercut Carney's credibility? What do you think about this, Real Talkers? We want to know. We're going to get to more and more emails every single day. We're leaving some time in this episode as well. We're going to hear from Sarah and Janelle, and we're going to hear from Jim, and we're going to hear from Sean. Lots of that coming up. But in just a second, we're going to check in with Lindsay Robertson. Lindsay's joining us from the Royal Alexandra Hospital Foundation. They've got the big early bird deadline looming with the Full House Lottery. This fundraiser is incredibly important to 2 different hospitals in the Metro Edmonton region that serve folks from across Western Canada when they need it most. And we're going to get to take a tour of some of the cool properties and talk a little bit about the amazing work that's being done in healthcare, courtesy of Real Talkers just like you. Before we go any further, if you're looking to make a little bit more sense of the election and how these big policy conversations translate into your bottom line or that of your business, the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce, by way of their Instagram account, are doing amazing work. Check this out. You can follow them on Instagram at Edmonton Chamber. And they have a post. They've got a couple of posts. Their most recent ones that I wanted to put on your radar. Number one, they've got a federal candidates meet and greet that's happening at Edmonton Chamber headquarters at the World Trade Center in downtown Edmonton coming up on April 16th. A great chance to meet the candidates. But this is a great resource. Their team is putting out what we're watching federally. Okay, so they're closely watching to see which parties are committing to bold, forward-looking economic strategies, and they're localizing it to provincial and even municipal perspectives. It's a great resource, courtesy of our friends at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. You can learn more by following them on Instagram, and of course, you're going to want to make sure you check out edmontonchamber.com to learn more about a membership. Great networking opportunity with the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. Our friends at Freson Brothers are rolling out their first ever Filipino feast. That's coming up on the 5th and 6th of April at all the Freson Brothers Fresh Market stores. Don't miss out on your chance to taste authentic Filipino dishes cooked by Freson Brothers' team of Red Seal chefs. It is an all-you-can-eat feast. I'm so looking forward to this. It's going to include famous Filipino dishes like pork adobo, chicken anasal, beef caldereta, and more, plus a full salad bar. Just $25 per person, including the salad bar. Don't miss out April 5th and 6th from 4 to 8 p.m. at all the Freson Brothers Fresh Market stores. California Closets, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. I saw a post from them just the other day. You know, you can follow them at California Closets Alberta on Instagram. They're at a big conference, and their whole team is there wearing their Team Canada hockey jerseys. This is a family-owned business employing Albertans and sourcing everything they can out of Canada. You know that every installation that California Closets rolls out, whether it's a brand new walk-in closet, maybe it's a beautiful Murphy bed, transforming a spare bedroom into a home office, it could be a beautiful boot room or a garage makeover, it's all manufactured right here in Alberta. Custom designed to fit your space and your budget. The proudly Canadian-owned California Closets ready to welcome you to a free consultation with their design team. You can book that today at californiaclosets.ca. It's the time of year. If your family's going green, if your business is looking to cut costs on electricity, folks are starting to think about booking those solar installs. And the team at Solar by Kubi, of course, free quotes. It doesn't cost you a dime to find out what it would take to go green at your home or business. You can book that at kubi.ca today. Here's what I really want you to know. Kubi customers, everybody that's registered for an installation and has paid their deposit by April 20th is going to qualify to win $5,000 off their install. This all part of Kubi's celebration, their 10-year anniversary. A big shout out to our friends at Kubi. 10 years and going strong. 2 Kubi customers are going to be drawn at their summer solstice party on the 20th of June, and those 2 customers will receive $5,000 off their solar install. A fantastic initiative. What a great promotion. You can learn more about it by visiting Solar by Kubi online today at kubi.ca. Real Talk live chat, absolutely banging today, and we love it. Greg in the chat says, Mark Carney cut off his foot in order to stay alive so the takeover could continue. I've got a lot of you giving us your hot takes on exactly what solid leadership would have looked like there. Gizmo says, listen, guys, Canada's not broken. We are what America wanted to be but failed. Canada, one of the most loved and respected countries in the world. What a great comment from Gizmo, who I can see, John, from his cool little emoji there, is a Real Talk YouTube member.
Yeah,
so shout out
great.
to Gizmo for
awesome.
that.
And
Yeah.
we've got our community chat humming right now. People are in there as well.
Is that going as well? We'll talk more about that this episode. Super cool initiative. We got it all set up yesterday on Discord. More details on that in just a bit. But right now, there's something that we care about very deeply right here on Real Talk, and that's not just Real Talkers winning $2 million mansions. I mean, that's part of it. That's part of it. But the bigger part is the support that the Full House Lottery provides for 2 very important hospitals in the capital region. And what a pleasure it is to welcome Lindsay Robertson to the program. Lindsay is a vice president at the Royal Alexandra Hospital Foundation and one of the driving forces behind the Full House Lottery. Making your Real Talk debut. It's nice to have you in studio.
Thanks for having us, Ryan.
Yeah, people can check it out at fullhouse.ca. We've been talking about it a lot over the past couple of weeks. This is easily Alberta's biggest early bird value. You guys are getting set to give away 31 cars in 31 days, and that's not even the main grand prize.
That's just the early bird. And the deadline for that is tomorrow at midnight. So 31 cars, 31 days. I mean, a truck, a car, a Jeep, you name it, it is there for the winning.
So this I think a lot of folks are familiar with the Full House Lottery. They've heard about it. They've seen the billboards. They've heard about it on Real Talk. But I would love to talk a little bit about why the lottery is so important. Like, it's great to give away mansions, and it's great to give away amazing trips around the world worth $250,000. More on that in a minute. But why don't we talk about where the money goes?
I would love to. And I think if everyone stops and looks around them right now, they're probably sitting beside, or they are someone who's been touched by the Royal Alexandra University hospitals. I'd say probably here in this room. Mm-hmm. Anyone you know? Yeah,
absolutely. Our family personally, we've experienced loss at those hospitals and received medical care, really incredible, diligent, empathetic medical care and resources at a time where our family really needed it. And we have welcomed bundles of joy twice at those hospitals as well. So I feel like when you walk in that square footage, it's sacred space for a lot of families.
It is, and Full House Lottery ticket buyers are a huge part of that. We do all we can all year to raise incredible dollars for these hospitals, but our Full House Lottery ticket buyers are playing a huge role for us. They're providing equipment, they're providing care, they're providing the next best innovation, and we just honestly couldn't do it without them. So ticket buyers are incredibly important to us as well.
Can you talk to us about the mindset that goes into, I mean, at the Royal Alexandra Hospital, of course, the University Hospital as well, it's not always just about like securing operating funds. You're always looking to elevate the caliber of care there and obviously keep these hospitals among the best healthcare service providers in the country and around the world.
Absolutely. And that's really what we're here to do as a foundation, and what the lottery is here to do. Is it's not just to fund, the run-of-the-mill care. It's to fund the next innovation in care. It means more patients can be seen in a shorter period of time. It means outcomes are better because we have better equipment. We can see people quicker. We can provide more targeted care. You name it, there is not an area of care that has not been touched by donor dollars and by Full House Lottery ticket buyers as well at both of our hospitals.
What do you hear from people? Like, you must hear from people that are like, they're buying tickets every year to support the lottery, and obviously everybody wants to win the dream home or everybody wants to win a car. But I would imagine there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people that are doing it either in honor of someone, in memory of someone.
Absolutely. And actually, a few years ago, I made the call for the grand prize home.
You did?
And the man it's one of the best parts of my job.
You're the the phone caller?
I'm one of them. Yeah. But the gentleman who answered the phone, I thought, that voice is familiar. And I asked him a couple of questions. And what we figured out was that I had interviewed him a few years earlier. He had lost his wife to menopause-related mental health concerns. He started buying tickets in order to support us. And a few years later, he was a grand prize winner. And that can't be everyone's story, but everyone can make a difference for those that they've been, hopefully not lost. That's not the happy part of the story.
Yeah.
But to see the impact that buying tickets can have is just incredibly rewarding. And I mean, the prizes are great, pretty great too.
Can you tell us, like, what's it like when you make a phone call? Like obviously there's the sort of the very serious part of that guy's story, which is really obviously very sad. But people must think, like, do people think it's a prank call?
They do, always. And even to get them to answer sometimes can be a challenge. We all mostly operate on cell phones these days, so we can all see the numbers that are calling, and they don't always believe that it's us who's calling. Often we have to leave a message and expect that they call back, and they do a few minutes later. And it is just such a wonderful experience, not only to tell them about, a grand prize home, but hey, you've won over $1 million in our 50-50, or you're winning dream vacations for life. I mean, it's a pretty special thing to be able to do.
I can't imagine. And how cool is it? Johnny and I, we were double checking the fine print when we first learned of this. A car a day in May, giving away 31 cars. Have you guys ever done that before?
We haven't. That's a brand new early bird for us, and it is the largest early bird in Alberta. So we know that there are lots of great causes, but we think this 31 cars a day in May is a really special opportunity, and people only have until midnight tomorrow to get in on this.
Okay, so and people, again, I just want to say this a million times, fullhouse.ca. A lot of people are listening to this or watching it live, but a lot of folks will listen to this afternoon into the evening or into tomorrow. So basically, you got to get in right now at fullhouse.ca and get your basically get in to support the hospitals and get your name in the mix. And then, of course, that's the early bird. You want your ticket to stretch as much as it possibly can, but that's not the total cutoff. If somebody's listening to this a week from now,
they've still got time.
That sometimes happens with this podcast. They'll still have time as well.
They still have time, yeah. And all of the dates that, as we go forward are up on the website as well at fullhouse.ca. But we have a incredible grand prize home, the Legacy Signature Dream Home. It is wonderful. If you haven't been out to see the home, it is open every day for people to go and visit. There's a cold plunge, there's a steam room, there's a golf simulator that also does other sports. I mean, you could host an entire, you're showing it there. There's also a boxing gym, all kinds of bedrooms. You can fill that place. It's just a really beautiful space, and we love people to come out and see the home, and they can get their tickets there too.
This is like a $2.25 million pad, yeah?
Absolutely.
I love that you guys also throw in, just in case that's not enough. Here's
case.
An Alfa Romeo as
Absolutely.
well. And then a little bit of cash on top. We were joking on the show. That feels like, to me, that's like the property tax payments for a while.
I know. And people always say that.
Yeah, it's super cool. There's also, we'll punch this into the show notes. Johnny's showing us just some absolutely stunning photos of the place, but a lot of people will be listening to this on the podcast. So we'll punch this YouTube link into the show description on the podcast and on YouTube, so you can actually it's like a 4-minute tour of this house. If you're like me, you watch a video like this and you start to envision exactly how you would use this house. Like, this is what I would hang on this wall. This is where this would go. So that's grand prize number 1, but there's a bunch of other stuff happening as well. A big part of the Full House Lottery has always been the opportunity for somebody to basically see entire planet Earth.
Absolutely. And our grand prize number 2 is Dream Vacations for Life. So $210,000 worth of vacation money that people can do whatever they want to do. You got to think that you could go on 20 luxury vacations every July for the rest of your time with your family. You can really choose to use those dollars however you see fit. And we think that's a pretty special opportunity for people.
Yeah. So is that a big part, the sort of the cash alternative? I guess lotteries and fundraising, this is your wheelhouse. I mean, you understand fundraising better than almost anybody I know. It's quite a competitive space. You got to kind of offer something new and different every single year, right?
We try to keep the prizes exciting. This year, on top of all the things we've already talked about, there's also a grand prize 3, which is a Fritz Tiny Home.
I love this.
Tiny dream home. So that's $250,000 toward building your own tiny home. So that one's a really custom opportunity. The home's not built, so you get to to decide what you want to do and where you want to have that home. And if you've seen those shows about tiny homes, I mean, I'm inspired every time I watch them. I just want to move to the woods somewhere.
These are really on trend. Well, we were talking about
there.
this. We've been talking a lot, by the way, about the Full House Lottery because I'm just obsessed with some of these prizes. And the team at Fritz Tiny Home has they've really, I think, made a great and wonderful name for themselves. But this is also an opportunity for a family that may have like a piece of property that's been passed down, or maybe you would have an opportunity to kind of squeeze in and get one of those lake lots somewhere where you go, I can't necessarily afford to build a big house on this. You win a tiny home and all of a sudden, boom, your family's got somewhere where you're going to be gathering for generations.
It really is flexible, and that's what we want to offer. And on top of that, you know what, if someone decides that $250,000 worth of a tiny home isn't for them, we do also offer a cash alternative of $200,000.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Hey, so what happens without lotteries like this?
You know, lotteries, like I said, our fundraising funds innovation, but it also funds critical care initiatives that we have going on right now. So the Royal Alex and the University Hospital, we're both focusing our efforts this year on the cardiac care that we both provide. And if you know anything about the Mazankowski Heart Institute or the C.K. Huey Heart Center at the Royal Alex, these centers of care are serving Northern Alberta and beyond for any kind of heart-related care that people might need. And I think all of us can think of someone, male or female, young or old, who's been affected and needs cardiac care in the province of Alberta.
It feels like a little bit obvious to say this, but I feel like I've experienced this personally, and I know that other people have as well. You don't kind of realize what you need until you need it.
Yeah.
You know, and for some people, like I play hockey with a guy. I don't know how much he wants me talking about this. He's honestly, for real, one of my most fit friends. Like he's, you know, to put it into layperson's terms,
yes.
He's got a beach body.
Yes.
He's got a fabulous body, this guy. He's not yet 40 years old. He's under 40 years old. Mm-hmm. He's very fit. He's very active. Playing hockey about 6 months ago. We play every Wednesday, and he just felt like something was off. He stuck around on the bench but stopped skating. Young guy. Why would you ever think anything was going to go sideways, right? So he gets in his car. He actually, in hindsight, you go, gosh, we're glad this worked out okay because, you know, it could have gone even worse. But he was on his way home to talk to his wife about it and kind of pick her brain. But as he was making his way home past the hospital, things started to feel a little more strange. It was indigestion. It felt like acid reflux.
As it often can.
So he walks in. The triage team, just everybody did a wonderful job. Turned out he had or was having a full-blown heart attack. Our buddy Curtis, and he's alive now. He's healthy. He's back skating, wearing kind of a heart monitor thing. He's going to be a little bit more diligent. But there was some sort of a blockage. They got stents in there, yada yada yada. But who would have thought? Who would have thought that at under 40 years of age and fit as a fiddle that you would ever need cardiac care and emergency cardiac care? But you talk to him about that. I'm getting chills talking about it right now. We're so glad he's still with us, obviously. But he now is he's such an advocate and such a champion for these types of resources. Why would he and his wife have ever thought that they would need something like that within the next 30 years?
Absolutely. And we hear it all the time, and I think a lot of people often with cardiac think of males, and we hear it from young women as well. Women who aren't expecting it, women who present with cardiac issues differently. So you hear those typical symptoms that you just described. Often women don't experience heart attacks in the same way, and they can sometimes even be sent home not realizing that anything is wrong and need to return. So that's the kind of thing that we're trying to do. Not just provide the care in the moment of, but also fund the research that can help identify the differences for women and men when you're talking about things like heart disease is a perfect example.
We had actually a fascinating, I'm sorry if you'll permit me to take
please.
a second to plug our own show. Johnny, I don't know if you remember that. Remember that on February 20th, we had an episode on, so this was, by the way, Canada and the USA. This was the Canada and USA. We're getting ready to face off at the Four Nations face off.
I remember the day well.
So we did lead off with that. But back on our February 20th episode, while we have everybody's attention and we're talking about cardiac care, we talked to Dr. Sophia Ahmed, Colleen Norris, and Jane Schultz results on the future of women's health and some fascinating insights into, in particular, women's cardiac care. So that was our February 20th episode.
Absolutely. And Colleen Norris is one of the researchers that we fund and that would receive support from things like Full House Lottery. It is just critically important. It isn't just the patient care the day of, it's looking into the future and funding research so that we can prevent things like the story you told us about your friend Curtis. So we have not only the tools there, but the understanding to know when there's risk and to help those patients before something critical happens.
I remember when Colleen was on the show sitting across from me, and I was like, I am surrounded by people 10 times smarter than me.
I often feel like that in my job.
But you should see the comments. And the comments on the YouTube episode and the emails we got, people were like so impressed by it. And not just women. Like, obviously, it affects everybody.
Absolutely.
And people were writing in, like, I think that stuff like that's a wake-up call. They want to find ways to support that type of research, to ensure that these resources are well funded and there when we need them. And here's the opportunity. So again, Real Talkers, fullhouse.ca is where you can get your tickets. The early bird value deadline, worth, by the way, just under $2 million. That's just the early bird. You've got, as we speak right now, a day and a bit, but why delay? Do not delay. Get your tickets today at fullhouse.ca. Is there anything we missed or anything you want to put on the radar before we sign off?
I think all I would say is that some people's lives will change with these prizes, but it is guaranteed that lives of patients and their families will change with these ticket purchases. So we just want to thank them. We want to share our gratitude and say we could not do this without our buyers.
Fantastic stuff, Lindsay, and a huge shout out to you and your team at the Royal Alexandra Hospital Foundation, the University Hospital Foundation as well. Both hospitals benefit from this incredibly important annual fundraiser. Our family is proud to support it. We do every year in memory of someone very special to us. And Real Talkers, you can get your tickets today at fullhouse.ca. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Ryan.
All right, Linz, we'll talk to you again
day.
soon. That's Lindsay Robertson at the Royal Alexandra Hospital Foundation. She's serving as a VP there. We also want to make sure that UCAN Youth Services is on your radar. We've been talking to you all this week. Check out their website, ucan.ca, about their relentless outreach work. This team is partnering up with the Edmonton Police Service, the Youth Crimes Unit, to ensure that young people, we're talking age 12 to 17, are getting the supports that they need, and I'm going to put it plainly, to stay out of jail. Like, some of these 12, 13-year-olds are growing up without the integral supports that many of us have enjoyed and quite frankly taken for granted. I'm talking about things like a roof over their head, like food security, lunches, opportunities to network and hang out with young people that lift them up, don't bring them down. UCAN's Youth Services relentless outreach workers are doing amazing work in schools and finding jobs for teens that are looking to maybe get a career opportunity going. Family factors, including poor parent-child relationships or low supervision, peer groups, societal factors like alienation and poverty. You can learn more about the Relentless Outreach Program at ucan.ca. And whether you're approaching this as an individual or as maybe an organization, they're always looking for partners to support the good work they're doing. You can learn more at ucan.ca. Complete Care Restoration for more than 25 years has been helping folks get back on their feet after devastating events. Sometimes it's a sewer backup or a pipe bursting. 'Tis the season, right? Maybe sometimes as we get more into the spring, we'll be talking about wildfire, smoke damage, flooding. You name it, they've seen it. Professional property restoration services across the province of Alberta, based out of Edmonton and ready to respond 24/7. I think the best part about Complete Care Restoration, they honestly, and we're not BSing you, we've worked with them. We hired them. They built our studio. They treat every project like it's their own, and it's obvious from day one all the way through to project completion. If disaster strikes, remember the name, Complete Care Restoration. Our friends at North Road Investment Council obviously will be paying keen attention to what happens on April 2nd as this next wave of tariffs rolls out. This is a diligent team, a steady hand and a studied voice guiding their discerning clients through wealth and investing. You know, successful saving can create unexpected challenges, and that's where their team of financial advisors led by Marshall and Carrie come in. They know that life's financial journey doesn't always follow a straight path, and they've got some factors that set them apart from everybody else. Yes, they offer investment counsel, financial planning, and insurance, but also digital risk advisory. Nobody else in the space has a team member dedicated to this exact protection. They're the leaders in digital risk advice within the wealth management industry. You can take their digital risk quiz today for free at northroadic.com. You could save yourself a headache. And that's also where you can make an appointment to connect with them. That's North Road Investment Counsel at northroadic.com. 31 cars in 31 days. How cool is that? Imagine being able to make a phone call every single day, giving away a car to somebody. Johnny, you and I were talking about Mike Myers the other day. Austin Powers, Canada's one of Canada's golden children of comedy, and talked about how he had done the spots with Mark Carney, and they're sitting on the hockey bench. And I saw that a second ad from that campaign rolled out the other day. So
really?
Yeah, the Liberals are going to the well
I
on
didn't
this.
see it yet.
Yeah, they're kind of like it's presented almost just like as a casual continuation of the conversation. And we had reported, the Real Talk rumor mill had reported, we had heard that Mike Myers had been paid $50,000 for the spot. Whether or not that's true, who knows? But just an interesting insight. Well, it prompted Sarah to reach out to talk at ryanjesperson.com. And we love emails like this. Sarah says, guys, I'm an Edmonton mom of 3 kids under 6. She's got her hands full. 3 kids under 6, says Sarah, currently on mat leave from the Federal Public Service. She says, Real Talk is my way of catching headlines amid the busy days of life with little ones. She says, so thanks for helping me stay up to date. I let her know how much you and I appreciate comments like this. But she says, I thought I heard somewhere, and she said, and I wanted to write in, maybe it was even one of Mark Carney's own speeches, that Mike Myers actually approached the Liberals asking how he could help. And so she says, so I wonder if it was less of like a who should we get to make an ad moment and maybe more of just seizing the opportunity. Sarah says, anyway, small potatoes in the grand scheme of things, but thought I'd pass it along. That from her. Yeah, I wanted to write in. More than anything, I just wanted to give Sarah a shout out for having 3 kids under the age of 6 and still finding time to check out Real Talk. That's actually pretty amazing.
Where do you find the time?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Shout out to all the parents out there that are finding time for Real Talk amid all of your other commitments. We had a lot of fun on our Real Talk Roundtable, a special edition, an election edition of the Group Chat Roundtable, our most recent episode on the 31st with Catherine O'Neill, former Globe Mail journalist, CEO of the YWCA, Jenny Adams of the Adams Agency. They basically get their clients out of hot water and help put together strategic communications plans. Jenny, one of the best in the city at what she does. Jarrett Campbell works in commercial real estate, and Harmon Candola, a lawyer. And their comments prompted some really wonderful responses from Real Talkers. I wanted to further the conversation with your takes, but first let's set the scene. Obviously, you can find the full episode, our March 31st episode, wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. But here's a quick highlight.
As the conservative, center-right person here, what I care about is the economy. I care about protecting Alberta's rights. I care about being respected, and I care about a future for my kids. And what I think is Mark Carney is showing that he can lead those things, right? And so the scarier things about conservatism that we don't like, that Pierre, when he's sounding too much like Donald Trump, immediately we think that we're going to get Donald Trump 2.0. I'm leaning to the safer thing. And I think a lot of Canadians are, because they're scared about what Donald Trump is doing. And then they don't want the same thing from Pierre's.
I think that Carney's had not a great first 10 days or whatever it's been.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. He's very untested. The Conservatives have a ton of cash in the bank. I don't think it's
auto tariffs come. Ontario's going to be
the
mad.
Debate will be it could be the turning point, but if it isn't, it's completely over because of what's happening this week with the tariffs.
I think
going
the
on. If you're in
tariffs,
Ontario and Quebec, and I grew up in Ontario, this is beyond concerning for those two provinces. They have so much political power, and they have shown in the polls the swing. We've never seen a swing like this in polls. Have we? Have
no.
Any of us ever seen this?
Yes, the PC party. You guys, it's almost our 10-year anniversary of everybody losing.
One of the biggest stories of this election is the collapse of the NDP vote.
Yes.
Right? There's all those criticisms that Pierre and the Conservatives leveled against the NDP Liberal coalition have hit, and Jagmeet is carrying that baggage in a way that Carney doesn't have to. Mm-hmm. And so for him, they've collapsed, and Pierre's going after those ridings. And it's interesting because there's ridings in this country that will swing from the NDP to the Conservatives, and having an NDP vote collapse opens them up places like, Victoria and Vancouver Island. There are places where the Conservatives can make inroads. And because, again, a lot of that benefit has gone to the Liberals. Look at Alberta. If you're going into a supply and confidence agreement with the Liberals, and the only thing you get out, you get dental care, pharmacy care. You could have done that as a party.
The guy wishes he would have called the election a long time ago.
You can find that highlight and the full interview, of course, on our YouTube channel. We also talked about this post from Donald Trump. This, as we were heading into the weekend, you saw that one following that conversation. It was their first phone call between Trump and Mark Carney, where he described it. First of all, I mean, I think it's funny we have to point this out, but it is relevant. He described him as Prime Minister Mark Carney, not the governor, right? Calls it an extremely productive call. Says they'll work after the upcoming election on other factors that'll end up being great for both the United States of America and Canada. We wondered whether or not that was good for Carney, whether or not it was good for Poilievre. You can listen to the full episode to hear what the roundtable says about it. But Janelle wrote in, and she says, guys, I'm listening to the March 31st episode, the group chat roundtable, super regretting, says Janelle, that I couldn't watch it live because I was in a meeting. But she says, guys, let's be real. First of all, she says there's no way that Donald Trump wrote that post. The one where he said he had a productive conversation with Mark Carney. No way, she says in all caps. It was too coherent. There's zero chance he wrote it. And secondly, he definitely is, that's the president, trying to pull some sort of reverse psychology on Canadians. Why? Because he can see that he is the literal reason that the Liberals are enjoying such a sway in the polls. And everybody knows that Pierre Poilievre is aligned with Trump. Both Trump and Musk have spoken positively about him over the course of time. And it's pretty obvious that Pierre's cloned slogan trash-talking campaign is a Trump-light approach. And obviously the majority of Canadians don't want what's currently happening in the States. Even Quebec is on slide, and Alberta is slowly joining in. Carney potentially winning our next election ruins Trump's plan for North American domination. Janelle says, I can't even believe I'm saying this because it sounds so conspiratorial, which is something I despise with the passion of 1,000 white-hot burning suns. But more or less, it's Trump for North America, Putin for Europe, and Jinping for Asia. If we take this into account, his psychotic narcissism, this is a thing. She says, thank God it seems Team Canada is smarter than Trump. She says, sorry, but I agree with the gals on your roundtable. That from Janelle, who wrote in to talk at ryanjesperson.com. Jim wrote in from BC, says, what an interesting discussion with your political pundits. He says, I'd probably call them strategists, arguing about the Canadian political scene right now. He says, but in my thinking through that interview, there were some misses along the way. Johnny, these are always the emails that catch our attention, where somebody says, well, you missed this. Why didn't you talk about this? This story's flying under the radar. We love that stuff. Keep those coming. Jim says one of the first big ones, the comments concerning Mark Carney not having been in politics before. I mean, his first job in politics, he's the prime minister of the country. And comparing him to Donald Trump, also not being in politics, but being a reality TV star. The latter point supposedly making him a better debater, Jim says, which I found to be a rather dubious proposition. But the real miss in that roundtable, says Jim, was the comparison to Pierre Poilievre, who, like most on the MAGA right, are good debaters when it comes to sound bites or the fear-mongering about whatever the powers behind the right wing find effective. Poilievre is the ultimate politician. His education from the University of Calgary, political science, followed not by working at anything productive, but by simply becoming a politician, riding the citizens' gravy train. So let's compare. People are tough on career politicians, aren't they? Like, I mean, gosh, maybe I'll push back on that in a quick second, but still, I'm not going to suggest that being an MP forever is the same as being governor of the Bank of Canada, but still. Jim says, so let's compare. He says, Mark Carney, while not a politician, has certainly been in politics. As governor of the Bank of Canada, he helped Canada survive the 2008 financial crash, during which time the American economy faltered and required trillions in bailouts to keep it going. That's true. Says it would be reasonable to believe that politics and political connections were all part of that job. Later, as governor of the Bank of England, he kept the British economy solvent as it transited through Brexit out of the European Union. Again, it would be reasonable to believe that politics and political connections were part of that job. He says, so in sum, we have an inexperienced political hack juxtaposed against a globally experienced practical economist with a successful track record. Jim says another big miss on your roundtable was the lack of connection or comment on the substance of J.D. Vance's comments. Johnny put together a great short. You can find it on an Instagram reel, on TikTok, quoting the vice president. Jim says, well exposed in his rhetoric were comments that are expressed frequently about U.S. industry, that we need to return industry to the States so we can have the strongest military in the world. Joe Biden argued the same thing, that the war economy in Israel was good for the American economy, as most of the money was spent on U.S. armaments and ordnance being built in the good old U.S. of A. Jim says with a conservative government, Canada can look forward to poorer health care, more expensive and less effective privatized care. Says the States and Britain are both examples of this. Jim says we can look forward to the weakening of social support structures like old age security, Canada Pension Plan, and the returns of the provinces for healthcare and education. He says along with that, most likely the lowering of taxes for the already wealthy and increasing costs associated with this so-called efficiency, something corporations aren't always great at. He says, finally, one of your pundits argued that Canada would be worse off than the States in a trade war without providing any possible or probable scenarios as to why this might be the case. I think he's talking about Jared Campbell. He says, certainly certain sectors would be more affected than others, like the auto industry, but many would more than likely find alternative markets overseas. He says an argument made that the quota system for farmers' supply management popped up, particularly dairy farmers, essentially was a limiting factor to free trade. Jim says, well, free trade is never truly free, and I would much rather have our own domestic farm products and sustain our own farmers as opposed to selling them out to European or American interests. Jim says, I'm sorry the email's a bit long, but these are big topics that are very significant for the future of our Canadian heritage and identity. And Jim signs off, elbows up. I love that. Have you noticed more and more people are signing off elbows up? It's like a thing now. Remember back in the days of COVID where people were doing that and people were starting to raise the elbows and touch elbows? That was a weird period of time.
It carried on.
It did carry on.
Elbows up and bump.
Elbows up. We didn't know it was coming. This was an awesome one as well, and we got this from Sean Yam. Do you remember Sean joined us? He was in. He was an Alberta boy. Did his schooling in Alberta, and then he's working in fund management, and he's got a really wonderful job. When we talked about the future of food, a really really cool episode this summer. Real Talkers, if you missed it, check it out. Just Google Real Talk: The Future of Food, and you'll find it. So Sean joined us as part of a panel discussing why they're investing in future food technology, things like lab-grown meats and the like, protein alternatives. Really fascinating stuff. Well, I got excited when I saw his name in our inbox to talk at ryanjesperson.com. He wrote in, he said, Jespo, I was on the show back in late summer. He said, I just wanted to drop a line that I have since become a subscriber and a daily listener, which is music to our ears. He says, you and Johnny, I'm just loving the election coverage. And he says, kudos on the Politico gig. Thank you, Sean. I'll be writing for Politico every Thursday and every Wednesday, including tomorrow's episode. We have a team member from Politico joining us from somewhere in Canada covering a campaign. So pretty cool stuff. And Sean's enjoying that. He says, I appreciate the thoughtful, objective, and moderate analysis and the fact that Real Talk brings on guest experts from across the political spectrum. He says, I really appreciated your March 31st, the really dynamic panel. This is the group chat roundtable with 4 former Red Tories. He says 10 years on. Isn't it wild to think how centrist, rational, and worldly the old progressive conservatives were? Sean says, I think if a PC party still existed, or even a more centrist conservative party under the leadership of a Christy Clark or a Lisa Raitt, he says, I think that the Right Honourable Carney would have run as a Tory. Keep up the great work. He's good to follow developments from back home. All the best from Milan, Italy. Sean Yam, who signs off, says, I also know, based on the comment on the roundtable, I know many small C conservative types in South Edmonton, where I'm from, who will be voting Liberal. That from Sean. That was a pretty interesting conversation yesterday as it started. I mean, it's anecdotal, obviously, but people
Harman
talking about how
point,
a lot of their conservative friends are going to be voting Liberal.
Yeah, you're going to see these weird, I don't think we've seen it before, but you're going to see where NDP ridings flip to conservative. It's gonna flip you. It's gonna turn you on your head. This election, man, I just we're on pins and needles right now because our show and our listeners and everyone is just gonna be geared up. Not a lot of sleep we're probably gonna get, but when it's all said and done, I'm going to look back and be like, we did some good work here, Ryan.
We'll sleep when we're dead, John.
Exactly.
We'll sleep when we're dead. We wanted to touch on a couple of things, and why don't we get into this? So we rolled out, and again, this is just something fun for Real Talkers. I want to be very clear about something, that Real Talk will always be available for free. You'll always be able to catch our episodes on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts for free. You will never pay for that. But a lot of you have reached out and asked, are there ways that you can support the show? And YouTube, a short while, within the last year or so, rolled out channel memberships, which are a really neat opportunity in this case, for Real Talk subscribers to show some support for the show, to level up your involvement, to add some cool elements for the live chat. And we wanted to offer some perks as well. So you can find this on our YouTube channel, and there's 3 different levels. There's the Real Talkers, John, which is like $5 a month, right? It gives you some cool options in the chat. You can change you get some access to some exclusive emojis. You can change your chat display. And we're seeing these cool blue badges in the Real Talk live chat. Those are our Real Talkers that are in there, right?
Cool people.
We've got the Real Deal, which is $15 a month, and that includes some added perks. And then the Real VIP, which is like the top shelf. Basically, John and I are going to take you for beers all the time. That's what that is. But for our Real Dealers and our Real VIP, we have been really keen on establishing a Real Talk community chat.
Well, people have been asking us. They're like, why don't you have this like other people do? And we're like, hey, we've just implemented so many other things, but this is on our list, right? And so we've started it, and today it's I think I've created a whole other job for myself, but it's actually it's a fun one. Like even last night we were in there, we were just like, every time I open the app, a couple new joiners. We're trying to migrate over like a couple hundred people, and it's taken a while, but every time I open it, I add a few new. And somebody commented last night, they said, like, that's not a joke. You have a whole other job, and we were like, even like, I'm not saying we're going to be in there 24/7, but there's always someone chatting. And I found myself last night, I was in there till like 10:30 just talking to people. But if you hop on Discord, and if you're a Real Talk or a Real Deal or Real VIP or a patron member, you've got a link now that you can follow, and I'll add you in there. And it's just somewhere you can continue even today after the show, or we have a show and you feel like, people are always saying like, oh, I wanted to chat more with that person. I was not always yelling, but you're having a debate, you're having a conversation, and then it kind of ends abruptly. You can go in there now, our Real Talk community chat on Discord, and continue the conversation as long as you like, all day long if you want. Yeah,
I have mixed feelings about displaying it on screen, because I think that part of the beauty of it is
private.
It's a private chat
for our members,
and it's going to be a lot of fun. But we've had people reaching out to the show, and again, this is not lip service. Like I just want to make clear, when you write in to talk@ryanjesperson.com, leave a comment on a YouTube episode, whatever.
We read it.
We read
every
them,
single one.
And a lot of you write in and say, hey, this would be a really neat thing for the community, or hey, we want to support the show, here's a cool way to keep it going, and we want to level up consistently. And so this Discord, like you said, number one, it allows Real Talkers to continue to gather in a live chat format if you like, 24 hours a day. I even think of like on stat holidays, or you and I are taking time with our families, or the show may sign off for a week in the summer. That Discord is going to be the Real Talk community chat, we're calling it, a place where people can still hang out. A lot of you, I know it's part of your morning routine. This is like one of the huge honors of, I'll speak for myself, an honor of my life that so many of you join us at 8:30 Mountain, 10:30 Eastern on weekdays. But there are days where we're not doing a show, and that'll give you an opportunity to still gather together, have chats, come together, and talk things out. So that's a level up that we're really proud of.
Oh, you've got it on your screen there.
That's what I'm saying. But I think you can show a quick one just to give
Somebody's
people an idea
pause this after. There's nothing in
kind
here,
of what it looks like. There's nothing crazy in there, but it's
like
just a fun chat.
You can text, you can voice. There's other things we could do. Like we may jump in there and do like, a video session with people or whatever. But also, like, it's just amazing. Even last night, Ryan, I didn't even tell you this. People were like, hey, can I submit a positive reflection here? I'm like, of course you can.
Absolutely.
So that's what we want it for. Like, no matter what's on your mind about the show, throw it in there, and we'll get to it as soon as we can.
We also want to give a shout out to our Real Talk Patreon supporters and Real Talk. Some of you had written in and said, listen, we've been supporting the show as a Real Talk patron, making a monthly donation to the show. And gosh, have we ever appreciated you, and do appreciate you. You've said, is this redundant? Like with the YouTube channel membership and this Patreon thing? What we're trying to do from our perspective is leverage every opportunity we can to bring people together in community and to give you an opportunity to support the show. But Patreon will always have its own exclusive benefits. So all of our patrons, all of our Patreon supporters have also received by now an invitation to join this Discord. So the Discord will be our Real Dealers, our Real VIP YouTube channel members, and our Real Talk patrons. Also a note that exclusively for our Real Talk patrons on the 17th of April, that's the Thursday, right? The 17th. Let me check so I don't mess this up. The 17th
Don't say
of
the
April.
venue.
I'm not saying the venue. Thank you for the reminder.
Because we've got all these levels now. We've got to be careful.
Our Real Talk patrons are going to be joining us. We already have I think 30 RSVPs, so this is going to be a blast.
Amazing.
We're doing a watch party. That's the night of the English language debate. We wanted to do something really cool through this election 2025. So exclusively for Real Talk Patreon supporters on the 17th of April. Check your email for details. You got to RSVP. You have to have a digital ticket to get in. Yes, there will be a bouncer at the door, so don't try to crash the party if you find out where it is, but we're going to have so much fun. We're picking up the tab, and we're going to watch the debate together and talk it out. That's going to be a fun event in person on the evening of Thursday, the 17th of April.
I tell you, there's nothing that gets me more riled up than alcohol and a French language debate.
No, English
language debate. Remember we were talking about this the other day. I'm like, why do they have to call it that? Why don't they just call it a debate and then call the other one French language debate?
Yeah,
but I get it. Canada, I get it.
Yeah.
And Carney's been, we've been watching, we knew his French was good. You have to know French to become the prime minister, but it's clear that he's been brushing up on it because when he was in Montreal, one of the reasons we watched the entire thing start to finish was he had just talked to Trump and we're like, wow, he's calling him Mark and not the governor. We got to tune in and see what Carney has to say. But also we'd see kind of the kerfuffle that our roundtable was talking about when they were in here about how, he made some mistakes with the French language and blah, blah, blah. But it's clear that even after that one day, just 2 days later, his French is better. So I wonder if is that like Rosetta Stone? Does he go home and open his laptop and put in his earbuds and just go? Or does he have an actual counselor?
Or maybe people are just making too big of a deal about his French. I don't know. We heard from some Real Talkers, Quebecers that wrote into the show.
And what did they say?
Well, they basically said nobody in Quebec is listen, I don't want to. So because what had happened was he had mispronounced the name of one of the survivors of the L'École Polytechnique, who is a candidate of that obviously that horrific moment in Canadian history, and sort of people were looking at that as though Mark Carney can't speak French. He had referenced the wrong name of the university and et cetera, and we heard from a couple of you, not a million, but we heard from a couple of you that were that's not a thing in Quebec. Nobody actually cares about that. So I don't know. I remember back in the day, I told you I grew up with Preston Manning's kids, went to the same school, same class, the whole 9 yards, same basketball team. And I remember when Preston as a sort of a relatively middle-aged man was trying to learn French as fast as he possibly could. Because it's you're not, you're probably, your political potential is capped in Canada if you're not bilingual. I mean, that's just a fact. But yeah, who knows? I mean, we'll see there, I think people are under the impression that Mark Carney is not participating in the French language debate. He is. He's not participating in a second French language debate that's hosted by TVA, which I know has been, this is what I've seen. This is not my personal opinion. Has been relatively hostile to the Liberals. So I think that's why he's, I think people sort of thought, this is just the analysis I've read. I'm not an expert in French language television. My French is just so parle un petit peu.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm not fluent in it either, so I can't really.
People say that second French language debate was kind of intended to be a bit of an homage, a bit of a cakewalk for Mr. Poilievre, and that's why Carney's declining that one. But he will participate in the official French language debate. But that's a tough look if you're not showing up for that one.
100%, and that's why I think he must be brushing up, because there was another clip I saw where he was trying to answer a question from a French reporter, and basically he was trying to get the word. And I understand the translation sometimes off, but he was trying to say it in French, and then he just went ahead and said the sentence in English. And it was Poilievre is very good at French. So I understand. But yeah, half the time, unless I have the person translating, I don't know what they're saying. I'm not fluent in French. I mean, I can est-ce que je peux aller aux toilettes, s'il vous plaît? I can ask
yours is better than me. Yours is better than mine.
I can ask her a few things if I have to survive. And Montreal or Gay Paris.
There's what did you say? Montreal or what?
Gay Paris. Happy France.
What's Gay Paris? Is that what that means?
Paris.
Oh, okay. I've never heard it called that before. I didn't know. I learned something today. There's two things I've been talking to Wyatt about, our 9-year-old. I said there's two things I wish I would have taken way more seriously, and that's French and piano. I wish I would have stuck with it, you know? Like 12-year-old me could speak some pretty decent French and play some pretty decent piano, and now I'm just piss poor at both of them.
You can play piano.
No, well, not anymore. I mean, I can play like Amazing Grace. That's about it. I can play the Cheers theme song, and you know Axel F., the Beverly Hills Cop?
And everyone can step up and do the
Oh, yeah, the chopsticks.
That's like the first, yeah.
Yeah. I also wanted to, this has nothing to do with anything, but I just wanted to give a shout out to John, who is obviously an incredibly valuable member of this team and does amazing work and doesn't pump his own tires. John, we have achieved a first with Real Talk. Would you please show my screen? I'm sure you saw this. We have, we have just hit, for the first time ever,
2 million views.
2 million views on a video. Congratulations. This was our January 20th video. This was the day that Donald Trump swore in. And that was when Charlie Angus, the New Democrat MP, at that time he's not running again, just went absolutely off on the Midas Touch podcast. Just went off.
Savage.
On Donald Trump, and we posted kind of our own take on it, and that short has officially now become our first ever 2 million view video.
Yeah,
congratulations.
And it's funny because 2025 there have been so many milestones, subscribers up, everything up. So we were like, should we mention when it hit 1 million? We're like, should we mention? But we've had so many other things. But man, Real Talkers, you've been amazing. The last 3 to 4 months especially, just like the support has just been leveling up, and we've got new people every day. We love you, whether you agree or disagree or whatever. The best part of this is people debating, so it's awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Tracy says in our live chat powered by Park Power, get exclusive deals on internet, electricity, and natural gas by visiting parkpower.ca/real talk. Tracy says, a piano teacher here in the chat says, I've never met an adult that didn't regret giving it up as a kid. She says it's never too late to go back. Tracy, I 100% agree. My younger brother, actually, they brought like one of these, these digital, what do you call them? Electronic keyboards, digital keyboards, whatever. Like they actually, the closeness to the sound and the feel of an actual piano is remarkable. They've got like the weighted keys and everything.
They're incredible.
They sound amazing. Yeah. My brother invested in one of those a few years ago. He's a trained theater actor. He's like an award-winning theater actor, Kyle Jesperson in Vancouver. And he got back into it, I think, because he wanted to be able to play on stage, right? If there's a role or whatever, but also because that's how he's wired. Participating in the arts and investing in the arts for him is like where he finds his peace and solitude. And Tracy, to hear him now playing again, better than he ever has, is inspiring me. This is just such a lame ass excuse. I'm just like, where's the time? But you got to make the time. Right? I mean, if I can go to the driving range 3 times a week in the summer, I can play some piano.
I've always wanted to learn piano, yeah.
Darren says he did French immersion. He says I was pretty fluent, and then I didn't use it for like 15 years, and it was pretty rough, he says, before I started focusing on getting it back. Yeah. I would imagine, I don't know what you did, Darren, but a big part of that is just surround yourself with the speakers of that language. Yeah. Don't give yourself an option to switch back to English. You got to speak the language.
I went to French immersion for like 1 year when we moved one time. It was like at school. So that's where I learned a bit of French, but that was years ago. And now, even watching that, like the questions asked to Carney and Polyev, I'm like, oh, I caught half of that, so.
Grounded in Reality says, I ditched the bagpipes and no regrets. I don't know. The bagpipes are one of those things. If you can play the pipes, like I hosted a golf. I can't wait to host it again this year at the Derrick. Tee it up for mental health. I'll be telling you more about that as the summer approaches. But they kicked off their golf tournament with a bagpiper, and dude, I was like, I had chills. This piper comes in and just like there's nothing. I don't know. That's why Braveheart's like my favorite movie. But bagpipes to me are just a thing. You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
Well, maybe we'll get some bagpipes in the studio. And you can riff.
Vamp Fashion says they want to buy some bagpipes just to play really, really badly. You imagine like living in an apartment building and your next door neighbor is learning to play the bagpipes. I guess learning to play anything. Trumpet, drums. Mm-hmm. Yeah, take your pick. White Room says French should be mandatory up through grade 9 and language class through high school. That should be a requirement for graduation. I think it is, isn't it? I think it is. Yeah, I think because our little guy, that was one of the reasons why I was talking to him about it, to stick with it, because he was, he's starting French. And I don't know, like some young kids, I guess if you, if you're learning something fresh for the very first time and you're not proficient in it whatsoever, it's intimidating. And I think he's just feeling a little bit intimidated. But at the same time, I was just telling him, like, even like I think of, in our industry, like in media, you'd meet a really skilled reporter, a really wonderfully talented journalist, or back in the day, a news anchor, although that's not really much of a thing anymore, respectfully. If you could speak both languages, the potential for your career to just was like nothing else.
Yeah. Real talker in here, Mashif says, she wants to learn. She or he? Is it she?
Yeah, Sharon. That's
Sharon.
Sharon.
That's Sharon. Oh, changed her thing.
Yeah.
Wants to learn our own Indigenous language. I've always wanted to do that too. I know we're always busy when we have a guest in here, but I've always wanted to learn as well that, in addition to some French, some more French. Brush up on my French, but
yeah. I see the comment here in the chat from Peter. What's up, Peter? Says, I want to hear the teaser from the top of the show. What's happening with the candidate in Calgary? Don't show my screen. I'm Googling to see if they have made the announcement. They have not made the announcement, and so I'm not going to scoop the announcement because that would just...
We thought it would come.
That'd be a prick move. They said it'd be announced this morning, but it's actually... no, I'm not going to say anything more. We'll have the news for you. How about that? On tomorrow's episode. It's not like a bomb. It's not like Stephen Harper's coming back or something like that. But someone connected to the show in some way, shape, or form, and someone whose name, if you're a regular Real Talker, you will absolutely recognize, is throwing their hat into the ring to run for the Carney Liberals in a Calgary riding that I think they could win. And so that's an interesting development. Anytime you're talking about a legitimate candidate that is not a conservative in Alberta or Saskatchewan, it's a story.
We want to hear your guesses now, Real Talkers.
Yeah, I love that. Throw your guess in the chat. Just let us know who you think it is and maybe what riding it is. And I will say this. Kenzie says, no, French is not a requirement in Alberta curriculum anymore. What? If anybody nails the candidate and the riding, Johnny and I will buy you lunch, because that would actually be... I'll buy the lunch. You just have to show up, Johnny. That would be a remarkable prediction if one of you could pull that off. That would be absolutely fascinating. And no, Vamp, Supriya Dwivedi is not running in Calgary. Definitely not. It's not Jeremy Farkas, Quick Dick McDick, a wonderful guest from Grounded in Reality, but it is not Quick Dick. If Quick Dick McDick ran for the Liberals in a federal election, I don't know what that would be.
I'd eat my hat.
That was like... No, that's a bad example. I was going to say that was like when people were saying that Jerome McGinley should have finished his career with the Edmonton Oilers. You remember that? Because he was kind of bouncing around a bit at the end. He is my favorite all-time player.
Yeah.
But remember Iggy? So he went to Pittsburgh. He was in Boston. He was in L.A. He was in Colorado. Like he was kind of going. He wanted that cup, right? And everybody was like, he grew up in St. Albert. He should come back and finish his career with the Oilers. Mm-hmm. You put him on a line with Connor McDavid. And I remember just most people going, it just wouldn't look right. You just couldn't do it. You couldn't have Jerome McGinley in Oilers silks after his Hall of Fame career with the Calgary Flames. I just don't think you could do it. I think Quick Dick McDick running for the federal Liberals would be my favorite political story of the year, but it is absolutely not happening.
A lot of guesses, great guesses in here.
Yeah.
In our chat right now.
Wise Kyle, we see you in there wondering if it's Jody Gondek. It is not Jody Gondek, but a good call. And Wise Kyle, by the way, we saw your earlier note. Discharged from hospital today after a heart surgery. We're grateful to have you back in the chat. Before we do anything else, I want to let you know really quickly, our friends at Edmonton Opera have released their 2025-26 season, and you're going to want to get your tickets for this before they sell out, because they will at edmontonopera.com. This season, 2025-26, is a season of legacy, starting with Bravi, Opera's greatest hits, which will be taking place at the Windsor Center October 9th and 11th, staged by their own artistic director Joel Ivany, in partnership with the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra, is going to be one you will not want to miss. November brings the Rumbold Vocal Prize. In February, audiences will witness the world premiere of Indians on Vacation, a poignant and comedic new opera based on Thomas King's novel of the same name. That's the first week of February at the Northern Alberta Jubilee Auditorium, and then the season wraps up with the third chapter of Wagner's legendary Ring Cycle, Siegfried, a fate forged in fire. We learn by following Siegfried as he discovers his true heritage, forges a mighty sword, and awakens the sleeping Valkyrie, the epic tale of heroism and fate, performed at the McLab Theatre at the Citadel at the end of May. 2025-26 season subscriptions are on sale now. You can learn more, subscribe, or even build your custom season at edmontonopera.com. I also wanted to make sure that April 12th is on your radar. I am so honored and proud to be hosting the 6th annual IC Change Gala. That's the letter I, the letter C, change.ca. ichange.ca is where you can learn more about the work being done by Innovative Canadians for Change. This is a nonprofit founded in Edmonton about 15 years ago, and they're using sustainability efforts, entrepreneurship, and innovation to address systemic global challenges, scaling solutions that address critical needs like healthcare, clean water access, energy security, food security, dignified living, and economic empowerment. The story is remarkable and one that Albertans can be very proud of. You can learn more on their website at ichange.ca. Coming up on April 12th, though, it's their annual gala, Clean Water, Clean Futures. And this is how we're going to be raising much-needed funds so these efforts can continue all around the world, including across Africa, into East Asia, and other amazing, amazing groups. I mean, we're talking about millions and millions of dollars invested in integral infrastructure. One of these was like a solar-powered oxygen delivery system for a hospital. I mean, just the coolest stuff you've ever heard of, but it doesn't happen without our support. I invite you to pick up a table, pick up a couple tickets, whatever you can afford, whatever you feel led to do, and join us April 12th in Edmonton at the IC Change Gala. You can learn more on the website at ichange.ca. Emily says, Ryan, you tease. Emily, it's not my news to share, but I just got an interesting email this morning from somebody connected to the show that let us know that they were going to be putting on pause their official role with the show based on pursuing their political aspirations.
Oh, now you're giving more hints.
I'm doing my best to give you as many hints as I possibly can without spoiling the announcement. Here's the deal. When you're in the business of soliciting scoops, you got to be fair in how you deliver those scoops, because you can, number one, wind up with egg on your face if you're wrong, and number two, you don't want to scoop the person with the scoop. You don't want to make the announcement before the announcement, so I got to be careful about that. You guys heard that on the show like a week ago when I came in here and let you know. Was it 2 weeks ago? What did I let you know? You know exactly what I'm talking about. I let you know Randy Boissonneau was running in Edmonton Center because I saw all of his lawn signs printing off at a print shop.
Which
and guess
one?
What? It turns out they were just blowing a bunch of money on lawn signs that they weren't going to use. So that's what that was.
Yeah, in our Real Talk community chat, we're talking about whether we should change the intro to opera music because it's so soothing when we hear that Edmonton opera.
Oh,
you know, I was saying I should change my alarm. Like every morning when my alarm goes off, I'm like, I should change this to classical or opera because it's I need to change that.
I think if you change your wake-up alarm to opera, you're not going to wake up.
That's what somebody else told me.
That would be my concern.
They're like, you're going to have some weird dream where you're at like, you know, the symphony or like floating through clouds or whatever.
I can't say who it is, but someone in the live chat has just, if we were playing, what's that game called? Like when you go warmer. Someone in the chat
Someone
is getting
sunk
warmer.
your battleship? They hit? They got a hit?
They have hit the battleship, but they have not sunk it. How about that? How about that? It is not Erica Baruti's. It is not Shauna Feth from Alberta Chambers of Commerce. It is not Max Fawcett, although that's a very good guess. Someone in the chat is getting warmer.
I already figured it out.
Did you figure it out?
I already knew. Come on. People know I know.
Play along with me, John Hicks. So we'll have that announcement on the show tomorrow. we're not going to be. We got to be really careful. I will say this for those of you that and this is a fair expectation, but you don't want to bring, like, if we bring on individual candidates, we've got to really do that, and we take this on very seriously. We're not going to like bring on like a bunch of Conservative candidates, or bring on like a bunch of Liberal candidates, or bring on a bunch of NDP candidates. Like, we literally log that stuff, and it's got to be equitable. We take our coverage seriously. It's what this audience expects. It's what our sponsors expect. But also, we got to be aware of when we're talking to candidates in specific ridings, because some of those ridings, I mean, some of these ridings, we've seen federal elections where ridings are decided, John, by like maybe not single digit votes, but I remember there have been some real nail biters. I can think of elections where candidates won by 50 or 60 votes with a total of like 50,000 votes cast. And so you got to take that very seriously and respect the work and the volunteer efforts and the door knocking. So if we do bring on, oh my gosh, the chat is getting warmer. Keep it going, chat, warmer. But right now, if we are going to bring on a candidate in a riding, we probably would bring on at least the big three candidates in that riding. I can't say every candidate. You know, there's some candidates that are running for, like, you know, the Christian Heritage Party or the Canadian Communist Party or things like that, where actually, I mean, that would probably be the best roundtable, to be honest with you. Get the Rhinoceros Party, the Marijuana Party, the Communist Party, and the Christian Heritage Party in around the table. Maybe that's what we need to do. Darren says Johnny knows the answer because it's him. Says, congratulations, man. You've got my vote.
Yeah, right.
John Hicks will be
Don't
rolling
go digging through my path. No,
John Hicks will be rolling out his election platform on tomorrow's show, and I can't wait for it. In all seriousness, coming up on tomorrow's show, we'll check back in with our friends from Politico. They're doing amazing work crossing the country, basically. They're on flights, trains, buses every single day, making sure that their coverage is as good and as fulsome as it can be. And that includes Wednesday appearances right here on Real Talk. That also means you can read my contribution to their Ottawa Playbook every Thursday. Oh, and by the way, registration for our Real Talk Golf Classic is open Thursday, the 19th of June at the Ranch Golf and Country Club. Find out more details on our website.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson. Executive producer Josh Dunford. Technical producer John Hicks. General manager Katie Cook-Chivers. Account coordinator Lawrence Derlego. Human resources Lena Shepard. Website design Mike Johnston. Voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harman Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.